I was 9 years old when they found my father's body in that Berlin hotel room. The official report said heart attack. The whispers said something else entirely. Traitor, defector, coward. Those words followed me through childhood like shadows I couldn't outrun. My mother never spoke his name again. She packed away his uniforms, his medals, every photograph. It was as if Captain Richard James Holloway had never existed at all. For 40 years, I carried his shame like a stone in my chest. Then, on a Tuesday morning in September 2023, 2 men in dark suits knocked on my door in Alexandria, Virginia. They showed me credentials that identified them as Defense Intelligence Agency. The older one, gray-haired with eyes that had seen too much, introduced himself as Director Martin Webb. "Mr. Holloway," he said, his voice careful and measured, "we need to talk about your father." I almost closed the door. My father died in 1983. There's nothing to talk about. That's not entirely accurate, Webb said. "May we come in?" Something in his tone made me step aside. They sat in my living room, these 2 government men, and Webb placed a worn leather briefcase on my coffee table. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. "What I'm about to tell you is classified information that has been recently declassified due to the 40-year rule," he began. "Your father, Captain Richard Holloway, didn't die of a heart attack, and he certainly wasn't a traitor." The room tilted. I gripped the armrest of my chair. Webb pulled out a thick file, its edges yellow with age. "Your father was one of the most valuable intelligence assets the United States ever had during the Cold War. He was our mole inside Soviet military intelligence for over 7 years. That's impossible," I whispered. "Everyone said he was selling secrets to the Russians. The newspapers were fed exactly what we needed them to print." Webb interrupted. "Your father's cover required the world to believe he was a defector. It was the only way the Soviets would trust him completely." The younger agent, who had introduced himself as Patterson, opened a laptop and turned it toward me. On the screen was a photograph of my father, younger than I remembered him, standing beside a Soviet officer in what looked like Moscow. "In 1976, Webb continued, "your father was recruited by the CIA while serving as a military liaison in West Germany. He had something rare, a genius for languages, a photographic memory, and a face the Soviets didn't know. We staged his defection, made it look like he was drowning in gambling debts, bitter about being passed over for promotion. We even had him pass low-level intelligence to Soviet handlers to make it convincing. My throat was dry. He abandoned us. My mother, my sister, me, for 7 years. He sacrificed everything," Webb said quietly, "so that you and millions of other Americans would be safe. The intelligence your father provided prevented at least 3 major Soviet operations that could have escalated into armed conflict. He saved lives, Mr. Holloway. Thousands of them." Patterson clicked through more photographs. My father in Red Square. My father in a Soviet uniform. My father looking older, thinner, with haunted eyes I recognized from my childhood. "What happened in Berlin?" I asked. "How did he die?" Webb's jaw tightened. "He was compromised. We still don't know how. The KGB discovered he was feeding us information. They confronted him in his hotel room on the night of November 12, 1983. By the time our extraction team arrived, it was too late. They killed him. They tortured him first," Webb said, and I saw genuine pain in his eyes. "We found evidence that he held out for 6 hours, long enough for us to pull 4 other assets out of Eastern Europe. He could have given them up in minutes and bought himself a quick death. He didn't. I couldn't breathe. All those years, all that shame. Why didn't you tell us?" My voice cracked. "Why did you let the world think he was a traitor? Why did you let his children grow up believing their father was a coward?" "Because we had other assets in place," Webb said. "Men and women who were still operating behind the Iron Curtain. If we'd revealed the truth about your father, the Soviets would have known their intelligence was compromised. They would have rolled up our entire network. Your father understood that. He made us promise that his cover would hold, even after his death." Patterson slid a handwritten letter across the table. The paper was brittle, the ink faded, but I recognized my father's precise handwriting immediately. He wrote this the night before his final mission. Webb said, "We were instructed to deliver it to you 40 years after his death, or upon the declassification of his file, whichever came first." My hand shook as I picked up the letter. "My dear son, if you're reading this, then enough time has passed that the truth can finally be told. I need you to know that everything I did for you, for your sister, for your mother, for a country worth protecting. You're too young now to understand why a father would leave his family. One day you'll be a man, and maybe then you'll know that love isn't always about being there for bedtime stories and baseball games. Sometimes love is walking away into the darkness so that the people you cherish can live in the light. I won't be there to teach you how to shave, or to meet the woman you'll marry, or to hold my grandchildren. That knowledge breaks my heart more than you can imagine. But I will sleep easy knowing that I did everything in my power to ensure you'll grow up in a free country, in a world not consumed by nuclear fire. They're going to call me terrible things. Traitor, defector, coward. Let them. Sticks and stones, son. The people whose opinions actually matter. The ones who know the truth. They'll know what I really was. A soldier, a patriot, a father who loved his children more than his own life. Be good to your mother. She knows nothing of this. And that's how it must be. Take care of your sister. Make something of yourself. Live the kind of life I'm fighting to protect. I'm so proud of you, son. I'm sorry I won't be there to tell you that in person. Forever your father, Richard James Holloway." The tears came hot and sudden. 40 years of grief and shame and confusion poured out of me in that moment. Webb and Patterson sat quietly, letting me break apart and piece myself back together. "There's more," Webb finally said. He pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was my father's Silver Star, his Defense Intelligence Medal, and a Presidential Medal of Freedom that had been awarded posthumously and held in classified files for 4 decades. "We'd like to arrange a proper ceremony," Webb continued. "Your father's name will be added to the memorial wall at CIA headquarters. His service will be recognized. If you're willing, we'd like you to be there." I looked at the medals, these small pieces of metal that represented a man I'd never really known. A man who'd been called a traitor, but was actually a hero. A man who'd missed my childhood, my graduation, my wedding, my children's births, all to serve something larger than himself. "My mother," I said, "she died 15 years ago, still believing he betrayed her." "I know," Webb said softly. "That's the part that haunts me most about these operations. The collateral damage to families. Your father knew what it would cost. He paid that price willingly." I picked up the photograph of my father in Moscow, studying his face with new eyes. There was something in his expression I'd missed before, a deep sadness, but also a fierce determination. He was a good man, Webb said, one of the bravest I ever knew. 3 weeks later, I stood in front of a memorial wall, inside a building I'd never been allowed to enter before. My children stood beside me. My sister flew in from California, and a small gathering of aged intelligence officers watched as my father's name was unveiled. Captain Richard James Holloway, 1938 to 1983, Patriot. I placed my hand on the carved letters and felt the weight of 40 years lift from my shoulders. All that time, I carried his shame. Now, finally, I could carry his honor instead. That night, I took my father's letter and read it to my own children. I told them about the grandfather they'd never met, about the price of freedom, about the quiet heroes who do terrible, necessary things in the shadows so others can live in the light. My father didn't die a coward in a Berlin hotel room. He died a warrior, protecting secrets that could have gotten others killed, holding the line even as his life slipped away. And now, finally, the world knows the truth. He was never a traitor. He was their deepest mole, America's hidden blade. A ghost who walked among enemies and brought back the intelligence that helped in the Cold War. He was my father, and I've never been more proud to carry his name.